Good afternoon and welcome to this week's webinar with Deepblocks. My name is Michael Cavone, your Chief Revenue Officer. I appreciate you taking the time to join us this week as we explore office and retail mixed-use development opportunities in various markets. We're going to show you the ability of Deepblocks to scan various markets and do site selection at scale and kind of refine that selection of thousands of parcels into just a handful of parcels to meet our development criteria, and kind of show you how we can operate that software in various cities. We're seeing a lot of trending and growth with the office retail industry and development in Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, as well as Salt Lake. I'm going to start with Nashville, Tennessee, kind of, again, explore that market, kind of show you how we use the various functionalities of Deepblocks and again, narrow down those results to just a handful in a matter of minutes, and then we can display and show you how we do the 3D modeling and financial analysis in 1 year back of the envelope return on cost. Remember, Deepblocks is a tremendous tool where we're converging zoning data, construction costs, demographic data, market data, all into one piece of software, and we have kind of two interfaces to help you expedite your process from what used to take weeks, months, into just a matter of minutes. So the front end interfaces are market scanner and search engine, again, allowing you to use various pieces of search criteria to reduce those results to just a handful. And then once you select those sites, you can now then figure out how to optimize that site and develop on that site to see what makes the most sense, to kind of go through a high level, enter in various assumptions, setbacks, and truly understand the potential of a particular site. We have great export features on the front end. You can export CSV listings of all the results matching your criteria. On the back end, you can export to PDF the reports and show the various iterations that you can develop on these sites, and again, share those with your colleagues. If at any time you have any questions, and before we get started, feel free to use the chat to ask me if you want to review something or discuss a specific functionality with Deepblocks. Additionally, after the webinar, if you want to reach out to me at michael@deepblocks.com, definitely feel free to reach out. We can always set up a one-on-one demo or explore, again, other areas of the software. I'm just going to give a few more minutes before we jump in. I'm going to share my screen, kind of go through some key parts of deepblocks.com. And you'll notice here we're on our main page, but I'd like to always show you the cities that we currently are in. We're right now in 43 cities with zoning, over 1,000 cities with parcel level information. However, we are rolling out 57 new cities in the coming weeks. It should be live by the end of the month. And we're one of the fewest companies, if not the only companies that has this much zoning data digitized and available to our customers. So just a great time to join Deepblocks. Our pricing is at $18,000 per month. But as we roll out these 57 cities, our subscription is going to jump up to 36,000. But you can get in now at 18,000, and you will be locked in at that price for life, and your grandfather into that price. So again, there's still some time to get in at the 18,000 and enjoy the benefits as we continue to add more cities with zoning. We're adding more data layers in coming weeks and months. We're updating all our parcel level data. Just a lot of exciting stuff going on at Deepblocks. We're also working on a model of predictive analytics that we've been testing to kind of show future inventory growth of 5 to 10 years down the road and really present the trends of the hottest markets or where the markets are heading. So, and using very sophisticated machine learning models that we've developed and been testing. So again, a really good time to get in. We're just the cutting edge technology that we produce and how robust it is. It's really a lot of upside and tremendous amount of value that we can really bring to you in your in what you do day in and day out. So with that being said, let's kind of jump into it. As I mentioned, also you have your webinar section 2, which I upload the webinars each and every week, and some tutorials that kind of goes over key functionalities of the site in the software to kind of show you quickly in a 60-second clip how to use our software. So I'm going to jump in. This is my dashboard, and we're going to jump right into the search engine. And like I mentioned, today we're going to be reviewing markets, looking for office and retail mixed use development opportunities. We're going to start in Nashville, Tennessee, and kind of give you a nice overview of how to use the software to, again, go through a particular market, look at tens of thousands of parcels and narrow it down just to a handful and start to kind of evaluate and assess if that parcel makes the most sense based on your development criteria. My criteria is again going to be office and retail mixed use within a certain lot size. I'm going to be looking for, and I'm kind of going to also highlight some other ways of refining these results to what makes sense based on our development opportunities. So one of the first things I always like to do is kind of zoom out, again, get that macro level view of a particular market and use some of the map layers and really get an overall understanding of what we're looking at in this particular market of Nashville. Just a quick reminder, we always advise to use Google Chrome for our SaaS product. I like to always zoom out to about 80% for my screen size. The more parcels and more information you can capture in your viewport, the more you can really kind of view and, again, assess during your process. So one of the first things I like to turn on is the buildable area ratio, a very strong layer that we always advise our users to activate. Gives you a very good understanding of pocket density and where there is growth potential. So you'll see this deep red represents that stronger growth of a particular city. The darker orange kind of gives you an idea of where it's heading next. And then as it gets lighter and lighter, the potential or the density kind of lessens. And anything that we show in these map layers will remind you that we have a map legend here, kind of shows you how that data is sourced, as well as how that data is represented on our software. So as we kind of feel that this is a strong particular pocket of interest for us in Nashville, I'm going to start to zoom in a bit and kind of continue to gain a good understanding of this particular part of Nashville. Nashville is again, as I zoom in more and more. So we're kind of going from the macro level into a micro level understanding. We'll use our people layer to kind of get a good understanding of median income. Again, right here, you'll see a nice strong median income. Let's also we can see employment percentage. We're looking at 69% employment. So again, good solid numbers for possible office/retail development play. A couple other things we kind of can get a good understanding of is we can look at our office rates. This is our dollar per square foot leasing rate. So we're looking at 31.13, just to give you an idea if this is an aggregate of listing data that we pull in and then apply our machine learning to give you a strong baseline of what we're seeing in the market for a dollar per square foot. Just again, it's a good baseline, a good understanding. We also could do it for retail as well. Turn those retail rates, looking at $41.34 per square foot. Some other things that are going to continue to zoom in more and more. Again, I'm kind of focused in this area where I see a lot of this deep red. I'm going to turn off the buildable area for 1 second. And then we're going to look at kind of local businesses, get an idea of what kind of businesses are in the area. So you can also look at traffic count and get a good idea of traffic flow through a particular area. So you'll see these strong, again, and all this is represented in that map legend to give you a true understanding of what these colors, the color of the lines mean as you see that traffic flow in a particular part of a city. So again, so we're kind of looking at strong area, especially off this bend here in Nashville, Tennessee. We got some local business on this side, which I'll pull up again, and some over here. So a good amount of activity going on. We can also kind of go back, check out the population to see what we're looking at in terms of population in this area. And you'll see we have 7,300 right here, 4,200 over here. So pretty strong population numbers, even 3,000 down there. So it seems like a really solid area to consider. And based on that, again, I'm going to continue to zoom in and start to look for parcels that meet my criteria as I feel pretty comfortable about this area in Nashville. Let me just quickly turn off that traffic count. So you'll notice as I started to zoom in from that macro level and as the blue lines appear, you start to see your parcels. Once those parcels appear, now you can open up that market scanner and we can start entering our search criteria. So as we discussed, we're looking for office place. So we're actually going to just search for office. And there we go. We're just going to do that. Just to actually, before I show, just to give you a good understanding of how many parcels are in the viewport. One thing I always like to do is make this 1.5 million. And again, just gives you a good idea. We have about 3,700. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Let's see. So the parcel there we go. So we're looking at about, let's see, as it updates, 4,400 parcels in my particular viewport. If you have a larger screen, it will capture more. You can almost pull in up to 10,000 parcels if you have a larger monitor. But as I mentioned, so now I'm going to enter in office for use allowed. And now our results drop down to 2,300. Again, here's that export CSV. As I mentioned, you could export out. Once the results start to populate your screen, you can export out as many parcels that are matching. You'll get about 15 columns of data tied to those parcels. A very resourceful piece of information to kind of get your process started, looking for those off-market deals and for those development plays. So again, I'm going to continue to zoom in more and more. And I'm also going to kind of hone in on a particular lot size. I'm going to be looking for 10,000 square feet to 16,000 square feet based on my development project. And you'll notice now we're down to 171 parcels. So again, we're kind of going to turn on, again, we can always continue to turn on some other layers to get a good understanding of what makes the most sense in this particular part of Nashville. We can look at opportunity zones, see if there's anything in this part, but I kind of want to stay with inside this bend. So looks like opportunity zone will not make sense. Again, we have these buildable areas. So all right in this particular area looks good for me. So one of the next things I'm going to kind of enable. Now I'll just mention some cities we have existing building information where we can see vacant land, which we're actually updating to be consistent throughout every city we provide data. But another way of doing it, if we don't have that layer activated in a city just yet, is we turn on the satellite layer. So this is a great way of getting a good a good view of what potential development play might be. For me, you're looking for a parking lot. So here we go right here. You'd start to see this as a parking lot. So this could be, again, converted into possible office retail play. So what we'll do is we'll click that. And we can actually jump on the street view to confirm if it's, again, it is an empty lot. So let's go down the street a little bit. I believe this is right here. So you'll notice it's actually under construction. So someone has already beaten us to it. So let's kind of continue to look more. Here's another parking lot over here on this. Or this, I believe, is along H Street off between Palmer and Canary Row. So this could be another good potential office place. So after we select that parcel, we'll start to look at our property info. Again, just to kind of advise how this works. As I mentioned, we just went down from 4,000 parcels. I kind of zoomed in quickly and found a handful of parcels that I'm starting to evaluate. And it's only been a few minutes. So it just gives you a real good idea of how you can go through this process a little bit faster. Honestly, we're seeing our users say about 90% of the time. So actually much faster than, again, they're accustomed to in the past. Just some other things we can also show you, some of our demographic trends. So we're in census tract 195 in Nashville. You'll see a very strong incline in population, great sign, great trend. We see strong increase in employment population, strong increase in that rent, as well as household income against that. This is the U.S. average here, and this is the incline. So again, some really good barometers to look at and get a real good feel and analyze this area. So this could be a strong development play here and something we can potentially negotiate to develop on. So one of the next steps obviously is to go into that preliminary underwriting, but just to kind of go through, you'll see in our property info, we kind of give her some demographic information, some property info. But here's our key information, the zoning information that allows you to optimize this particular parcel as we break it down based on the zoning in Nashville. So you'll get your zoning limits, your parking by use, general use allowed, and some specific and more detailed use breakdown underneath those general uses. And lastly, you'll see your setbacks that are required for this particular parcel. And I will show you that I kind of actually already developed this particular project, and I will just to quickly demonstrate without going through all the steps, but I will show you how I came to this particular 3D model. And this is that particular address we were just looking at. So you'll see we have office on the top. Here's our parking in gray, and then we have a nice strong retail base at the very bottom. You'll notice we're looking at about 7.6 return on cost. Again, it's 1 year back at the envelope. And just to kind of go through a general overview of what we did here. So the way the 3D model works, we take in some market values and it kind of presets various assumptions from on the income side, you'll get dollar per square foot. Now this came with our baseline rate at 31 and change per square foot. I actually adjusted to about 35 because I feel I can get a little bit more. I also adjusted the project costs. Again, we do bring in some market values, dollar per square foot. This is around 184. I dropped it to about 180. Even on the retail side, I feel I could probably get 168. So again, it's a very intuitive, very interactive piece of software. We provide you and populate with sub-market rates based on that census tract. However, we do leave it to you to adjust based on maybe something you have a little bit better intelligence on or feel that you can do better on in certain income and cost side. Again, you can adjust your soft cost and the various different hard costs. And just some other things I did also I entered in the parking based requirements. And again, we're pulling this all from our property info that came from the previous interfacing transfers over, and just gives you perfect guidelines on what you can do. And the whole concept here is you want to optimize this to obviously bring and create the highest ROC, but also stay within those guidelines and what the zoning requires. Just to show you also as well, we put in some setbacks, and we can go into a setback mode, and you can actually uniquely identify each part of the building. You'll see this is our primary, secondary, and our this is the side, and here's our rear. This is right here along 8th, and I put in some setbacks at 5, just simply at 5 feet, which was the minimum required according to the setbacks in the zoning code. Just to give you a little insight, you can also use these measurement tools, and you can actually use them on any of the floors. So you can see there's a drop down here. You can uniquely identify setbacks based on each floor, as well as create little floor plans using these measurement tools. You can draw within here to kind of get an understanding of what may work and how you want to kind of break out or do, again, a little bit of a floor plan on each floor. But just a kind of another pretty cool way of using setbacks as well. If you want to give your building a little bit of design, see if we can go up here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the 10th floor, we can start to bring in this building and maybe make a little bit of a tower. Let's see. Oops. And we'll start to bring in, again, we can make a little bit, kind of give it a little bit of a different look, as you can tell. So again, there's some flexibility with the software. You can get pretty creative with this, but again, the main premise here is to really expedite your process and get a really true understanding of what the potential is on a particular site. If it makes sense for you, if it makes sense for your company and your partners and investors. And last, as I mentioned, you can always export this out to a PDF report. It's a nice little 4-page report, kind of presenting a little writing summary. Shows you the zoning information, the stacking plan, the demographic information and trends, and lastly, the financial analysis, which again, we have our back of the envelope along with detailed assumptions based on that property, as you can see here. And as I mentioned, anytime you update and enter in assumptions, it automatically updates for you and is calculated. And another great thing too is you can copy this project, go through a different iteration. Maybe you want to just do an office play and not the office retail, and kind of start comparing different projects. We do have a question. Where does the market rate data come from? Great question. So each piece of information on these map layers, it varies. So in terms of the people, this is our demographic data. This is coming from the census data. And it's right now it's 2018. We're just receiving through 2020. We're formatting it and we'll be uploading it through 2020. Just to give you an idea of like residential rates, hotel rates, office rates, and these various leasing rates. We're actually using an aggregate of MLS listing data that we have partnerships with throughout the country, but we actually take that data and we apply our machine learning to those rates based on calculations we've in our algorithms that we've created and have validated over and over to bring you a strong baseline. Again, they are based on that census tract, so there are parts of the census tract that might be a little higher than others. So again, it's kind of more of an average across that census tract, as I mentioned. Again, some of this buildable area ratio is kind of working off of some zoning information. Again, we have our zoning guidelines that are also being pulled from the municipalities and the zoning information. So every layer here is kind of pulled from a different and sourced differently. But again, the rates and the market rates are calculated, as I mentioned, through those aggregate that listing data and using machine learning models and applying that to those rates to give you a stronger baseline. So that is Nashville, a little bit of an example of scanning down and reviewing and creating a project in Nashville. Kind of want to just jump into another market just again to show you how quickly you can, and again, the biggest advantage of using Deepblocks is to be able to do this at scale. And again, right now we're in a lot of the, pretty much in almost every primary market with zoning data. We're gonna, the next rollout of the next 57 cities are gonna pretty much be in almost every major market, and we're entering into some of the secondary markets. A lot of the markets, especially within the MSAs of major cities, which we're going to start to work on completing. That's kind of our goal, and continue to just hit those secondary markets, those tertiary markets, and really capture as much zoning data, market data, demographic data, and construction data as possible, along with other data. We're working on tax information. We're working on sales comparables, just all various types of property data. We're trying to bring in flood zones. Like, we have a tremendous amount of data that we've been collecting, and we're going to slowly be rolling out in the coming months throughout the following year. Just again, so we can jump into Austin, Texas, another hot city where we're seeing office and retail development. So we're going to jump into that one. And again, very similar concept. We're kind of zoom out, get that high level macro view. We're going to minimize these panels so we can get a real good look. I'm going to turn the grid back on for a second. And we're going to activate that buildable area ratio. Again, it's always good to use this buildable area ratio to get a good, true understanding of those pockets of density in a particular city. And you can see it's a little bit of that red orange color right here, which is right below deep red in the sense of measuring where those pockets of interest are in that high density area. So again, we're going to kind of focus in on this particular part of Austin. Again, we're going to start going through some of that census information and get a good idea of median income. And you can see we're looking at high income area right here in this middle part of Austin. So this looks like a really promising area to consider. We can also look at, let's see, kind of check out those employment percentages as well. We had 78%. Again, it's a really strong employment percentage. So this, right off the bat, kind of looks like a potential good area to develop some office and retail potential or development play. Get an idea of population, 6,600. Let's kind of zoom out a little bit to see our surrounding areas. Kind of turn that median income back on. Just look at some of the surrounding areas. So yeah, this is a pretty strong area growth. So again, we'll kind of hone in here. And once those parcels start to appear, we can then activate our market scanner and go through and start to narrow down our results based on our search criteria. So very similar to what we did previously. Just to give you an idea, we're looking at about 22. Zoom out a little bit more. And we're looking at about 2,800 parcels in this particular part of Austin. And again, as I mentioned, we're going to look for office. Here we go. And I believe, let's see, again, we're going to turn that buildable area ratio. Yep, it's pretty good over here. So we can even look on this part, this side of 35. We could also look over here and see there's other type of use allowed tied to office. I believe there's, let's see, yeah, there's administrative and business office. So again, each city classifies as use allowed differently. So you kind of have to go through, but the list makes it a lot easier to easily identify these particular parcels, how they're zoned. Again, if you know the zoning districts in a particular city, you can also enter those in as well. And you can begin your process. So again, we're down to 1,000 parcels. Again, same as last time, look for 10,000 to 16,000. See, the concept here is once you have your guidelines, your criteria, you want to try to bring it to different cities. And again, easily identify those opportunities and bring them to your company and help get ahead of the competition. So now we'll see we're down to 101 parcels, and we're going to continue to zoom in and look at this particular area. And I'm going to kind of focus in right around here. Let's see. And I know I believe I found a particular property along, let's see where it was, that made a lot of sense because it's, and I believe it was along, let's see, around 1006 Congress Avenue. I know was a particular parcel that I researched and found between 10th and 11th. So I think it was right over around this area. Yes, perfect, right here. Between 10th and 11th along Congress Ave. You'll see there's a good piece of land. So again, similar to what I mentioned in the Nashville example, if we don't have the existing building slider just yet, which again, we are working to update through every city and have that available because it's a powerful tool to especially look when you're looking for vacant land. Turning the satellite layer helps as well. And you'll see here there's primarily a parking lot with a couple little buildings here, which again might just be something we can work on to buy the property and maybe demo the small existing buildings and use this entire parcel. So as you look at this, you can go through that property info, see the zoning limits. Once again, you'll see that parking by use is allowed. And you'll notice that we can do, you'll see all sorts of types of retail that we can do underneath, that it's branded underneath commercial, as well as you'll see some office use as well. We have professional office. You could do administrative and business office. So this will be perfect for, again, this mixed use development play that we were looking at. And as I mentioned, I kind of already went into and did the project earlier. Just again, we can look at these demographic trends to see what's going on. This particular census tract, number 11, turn off number 7. Again, strong incline of population. You can turn off 7, focusing on 11. Again, strong increase in employment population. So a lot of good trends going on in this particular census tract. And again, it seems like a good potential play for office and retail. Let's go into preliminary underwriting. And actually, it's going to jump right into the building just to show you kind of what I created here in Austin, Texas. And you'll notice it's a little bit of retail at the moment with some office on top. I just kind of did it quickly, but right now we're only at a 4% ROC. And that's the great thing about Deepblocks. You can just start to kind of work on this property and begin to adjust to see what you can do to stay within the zoning limits and try to increase that ROC. So for instance, maybe we feel we can do a little better on that leasing income on the office side, maybe on the retail, you can do a little more retail space. And go, let's see. Again, if you max out here, you can always enter in a higher value to, that way you can continue to increase your retail. So maybe go to right about there. Stay within that 8-story zoning limitation. I'm actually going to try to go right to the edge here. That way. All right. So you can see like it automatically updates. And if I'm trying to get my parking to kind of be evenly distributed throughout as well, you'll see that the ROC starts to jump up a bit. Now we're at 5.5. Maybe we can get $50 a square foot on that leasing income. Now we can go on to the project cost side, kind of work on these costs. Maybe we can do a little bit better on that purchase price for the property, do 7.2. And again, just continue to work on these numbers that, again, within reason that we feel are negotiable and based on how we operate. So as you see, we start to enter in some different assumptions, and now we're up to 5.92%. So again, just want to kind of highlight these last few webinars I've been doing over the recent weeks. It's kind of more showing the power of our site selection and then the front end interface, our market scanner, search engine, what we like to call it, where you can go into all the cities we have zoning. Right now we're at 43. We're adding another 57. So we'll be in 100 cities with zoning data where you can, again, quickly identify and refine your search from thousands and thousands of parcels just to a handful and find that opportunity to develop on. Again, basically you pump in and enter in your criteria that suits your company's needs. And, you have kind of your formula of what works for your company, enter those pieces of criteria in. And before you know, you get down to a handful of properties and start to select those parcels, do some preliminary underwriting, assess those properties, kind of jump into the 3D modeling in this particular interface and create some iterations of what makes the most sense, figure out what is the most optimal play in a particular market. And again, spread that out and scale that out through the entire country. So you're not only just focusing on one city, now your company's focused on various cities throughout the country. So again, Deepblocks, that power to scale is one of our specialties. Again, we are one of the leaders in zoning data that we bring to our clients. And again, we're continuing to converge more and more data to have everything at your fingertips in almost like a one-stop shopping type place. So again, I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming out and joining us this week. And please join us next week. feel free to reach out at any time if there's certain topics you want to discuss in next webinars. Again, you want to get on a one-on-one call, discuss our product a little bit more. Again, reach me at michael@deepblocks.com. I hope you have a great afternoon, and I will see you next week. Take care.